living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
High blood pressure affects 75 million Americans, and many of those don't even know they have it. Left untreated, high blood pressure can lead to all kinds of complications. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Beth Brown. Coming up after these messages, we'll talk about high blood pressure prevention, treatment, and management. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I was the last guy you'd expect to get diabetes. I was a competitive runner and I always took care of myself. So when I was diagnosed, it kind of threw me. But it's really encouraging to know I'm not alone with it. There are a lot of other people going through the same things as I am. It takes some effort. You have to keep after it. Exercise, meds, and diet are the key. But there are a lot of folks who want me to succeed. Diabetes is not the end of the world. With effort and attitude, you can have a normal life.
Gentlemen, this is a secure federal facility. Do you have your Montana Real IDs?
ID. I am Captain Lewis, and this is Captain Clark.
I'm sorry, I can't let you in.
Can't go into a federal facility, can't fly. Let's go back to the river.
Yes, we'll float home. Let me check the Google. What's a dam?
Discover more at mtrealid.gov.
Montana Real ID. It's the real me.
Summer in Montana is a great time to visit your local farmer's market. Enjoy the social atmosphere while shopping for a wide variety of fresh, locally grown produce. Together with both WIC and Senior Farmers Market nutrition programs, you help feed your family 5 or more daily servings of fruits and vegetables for better health. You also help local ag producers and enhance the state's economy. So, for summer fun that's nutritious and helps Montana's economy, shop at your local farmers market.
The human heart. Even at its strongest, it's a fragile muscle. Chest and arm pain, shortness of breath, are signs of a heart under attack. But 3 numbers can save a life. Dial 911 at the first sign of a heart attack. Quick response from medical experts can save your life.
I was 45 and it happened to me, a heart attack.
Dialing 911 saved Ryan's life. Now he's here and he's healthy.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
Welcome back. Joining us this morning is Britt Ballinger, a nurse practitioner, to talk to us about blood pressure. Thanks so much for being here this morning, Britt.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So we hear over and over again the important role that blood pressure plays when it comes to your heart health. And we go in for checkups, a nurse or a doctor takes our blood pressure, uses the cuff, all of that. But what is blood pressure? What actually is getting measured there?
Blood pressure is a measurement of the pressure inside your arteries. So that's what we're measuring when we squeeze your arm. We cut off the pressure and then cut off the blood flow to the artery and then read when it comes back. And that helps us measure the pressure inside of your arteries.
Okay. And when we talk about blood pressure, there are basically 2 conditions we might be talking about, hypertension and hypotension. Can you talk about the difference between those 2?
I can. Hypertension is the one of biggest concern that long-term, that is high blood pressure, when your blood pressure is reading high over a long period of time. Hypotension is more of an acute problem, and that's when your blood pressure is low.
So we talked about using the cuff earlier. What exactly happens then as far as using the stethoscope and all of that? What is the doctor listening to when your blood pressure gets measured?
So when they put the cuff on, they squeeze the bulb and increase the pressure and cut the blood flow in the artery. And the stethoscope can hear your pulse when it comes back, and the monitor that's attached to the cuff, that's called a sphygmomanometer, just a fun word to say, but that is gives us the number readings to give us an idea of the pressure inside the arteries.
Okay, and those number readings, someone might hear something like your blood pressure is 120/80. What is actually being said there? What do those numbers mean?
So when the heart contracts or squeezes, that's the top number. So that's the measure of the pressure in your arteries when the heart is squeezing. And when it relaxes, the bottom number is what is the measurement of the pressure when the heart is in a relaxed state or diastole.
And typically, where do we want those numbers to be?
120 over 80 is the average number that you hear. Once it gets to 139 over 89, then they start talking about giving treatment.
Okay, and is there a low side that people should be aware of too?
Typically people get symptomatic when their blood pressure is too low, and that usually happens when it's under 100, but some people can walk around and have a lower blood pressure.
Okay.
Without any symptoms.
Is there a certain age when people should become more concerned about their blood pressure?
As we age, blood pressure goes up. So typically when you go to the doctor, it gets measured. At least, once every 4 years as an adult, but I suspect that if you go to the doctor at all, it's going to get measured.
Okay. And what role does family history play when it comes to your blood pressure?
It's huge. Family history is the biggest contributor. So that's what I tell people. This isn't your fault. You're not being punished. It's your mom's fault.
And as far as that normal range that you talked about earlier, are there things people can do so that they can keep those numbers in that normal range?
Yep, the usual staying healthy things. In particular, a low sodium diet is helpful, and regular cardiovascular exercise is also helpful.
Okay, and then what about if it's low?
If it's
do you
low,
need to bring it up?
And you're symptomatic, the best thing we can do is reverse what's causing the low blood pressure, typically dehydration or anemia, and it can be a sign of serious medical condition. But if that's the presenting problem, you're going to have symptoms. So,
okay. I've seen too, there are tips out there for people when they go to get their blood pressure measured. What should the patient do when that measurement is taking place?
Just try to relax and sit with both feet on the floor and try not to get too nervous, because the white coat hypertension, when your blood pressure is elevated in the doctor's office, I hate to believe it, but I do see it sometimes.
And is it best to get it done at the doctor? Sometimes you see those cuffs that you can sit down at different places and get your blood pressure. How accurate are those?
A home blood pressure cuff is a good thing to have, but bring it in with you when you go to the doctor so we can make sure that it's accurate. We can correlate it with a manual blood pressure.
And is that the same with at-home kits, or how do those work?
The at-home blood pressure monitors, they work the same way. It's just an electronic earpiece, that kind of a computer that listens to the sounds that we're listening to.
And then how do patients get those numbers or the results of the blood pressure measurement to their healthcare provider?
They can record them in a log, or they can bring in the monitor. A lot of the monitors will keep a history. Okay,
and I've seen the ones too that hook up with the apps. Can healthcare providers tap into those apps?
Probably somewhere, not here yet.
Okay. All right, because I know sometimes patient portals connect with those, but it might depend on the provider.
Yeah, I think we're heading that direction, and I think this recent changes in healthcare will be pushing things toward technology.
Right, yeah, because I'm guessing a lot of people now are getting telemedicine type services to get these measurements.
They are, and we have a platform that we've been using here at St. Peter's, and patients can do a blood pressure and stethoscope kit with it, but it costs them at least $200. So,
wow, okay.
We're working
on. We're out of time for the moment. We need to pause here for a commercial break. So we've started with some of the blood pressure basics. When we come back, we're going to focus on high blood pressure and talk about what you need to know and how you might be at risk. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks.
I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1992, and I went into denial. It made me angry. I was a professional chef, and I didn't want to change my eating style. It took me a long time to get serious about managing my health. My perspective changed from resentment to one of loving my body, the container for my spirit. Getting help from my diabetes educator supported my goals of improved self-care. I want to feel good and have a great life. My diabetes educator helps me do this.
Every generation produces heroes, men and women who step forward to defend our country in time of need, no matter the personal cost to themselves. And though we can never fully repay them, we can make sure they have access to low-cost, long-term care when they need it. That's what Montana's Veterans Homes are all about. If you've got a hero in need in your family, call us. We can help.
Montana is a very rural state with very small communities, and I think it's very important that we get it out in those smaller communities that yes, our older adults are having falls. It's very important to prevent these falls, and now we have a program, Stepping On, that can help them with that and teach them to have a better quality of life, live longer independently by themselves or with their spouses. We can use the Stepping On program to help prevent those falls and to make people's quality of life better.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Welcome back. We're still talking with nurse practitioner Britt Ballinger about blood pressure, and we're going to now focus on high blood pressure or hypertension. So Britt, can you start out by talking to us about some of the causes of high blood pressure?
The biggest cause is a family history. If your parents had high blood pressure and you have it, it's a genetic thing. As we get older, blood pressure does go up also. The usual risk factors, diabetes and obesity and sedentary lifestyle also contribute to high blood pressure.
So if someone
a high
has
sodium diet also can contribute.
Okay. So if we have a close family member, especially parents, who has had high blood pressure, are we doomed?
No, you're not doomed. We can treat it. You just need to monitor it.
Okay. So
you might get it, but that does not mean you're doomed.
Okay. That's good news. So what can someone do who might be high risk to try to keep that blood pressure down?
Exercise, maintain a healthy weight, monitor themselves with the doctor for high blood pressure and diabetes. Don't smoke. Absolutely don't use tobacco. Tobacco is a huge contributor that I forgot to mention before.
Okay. And if someone has high blood pressure, you can reverse it. Can you get it back down to normal range?
We can with medications and quitting smoking and using tobacco. The medications are the big one, but a low sodium diet and exercise also help, as well as weight loss and a generally healthy lifestyle.
Does high blood pressure have symptoms?
Typically it does not, unless it's very high. They call it the silent killer because people walk around with high blood pressure for a very long time, and it's over time that high blood pressure can typically cause problems. If it's very high, people can get symptoms of headache and blurred vision, and it can lead to a stroke if it's extremely high.
Okay. And you talked about the sedentary lifestyle being a high risk. Are there certain exercises that are better than others when it comes to lowering your blood pressure?
Cardiovascular exercise where you keep your heart rate up for at least 30 minutes per day. Walking is a good one, is the most excellent form of exercise, and it's easy for everyone to do as long as they don't have, knee problems. But exercise is the most important thing you can do for your overall health as well as your blood pressure.
Are there exercises that people with high blood pressure should be careful about?
Not really. as long as you're moving your body and getting your heart rate up. The blood pressure does increase when you exercise, which is normal physiologic response, but it comes back down, actually lower than when you started, when you finished your exercise. So it's not something we typically worry about.
Okay. And you mentioned diet as well. What should someone pay attention to when it comes to diet if they're very focused on lowering their blood pressure?
A low sodium diet is the most recommended. They recommend around 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day, and that will require reading labels. Typically, things that come in a bag, a box, or a can are going to be high in sodium. So shopping the perimeter of the grocery store for things that come in their own packaging is the best way to eat.
And how are salt and high blood pressure related? Why does sodium impact your blood pressure?
Because water follows salt, so it brings more fluid into the vascular system, which raises the pressure.
So there are certain things I would guess that people should avoid. Can you talk about some of those foods, either because they're salty or other foods that might impact blood pressure?
Yes, mostly the salty foods, the potato chips and bacon and things like that. And it's always a moderation thing. You got to live. But if you have high blood pressure, eating things with high in salt, you're going to notice a change in your blood pressure pretty immediately. Again, someone who eats a healthy, it's called a DASH diet. A healthy diet will lower their blood pressure, but it's also healthy in other ways. So it lowers their risk for cardiovascular disease because it's healthy for low cholesterol and diabetes and things.
Okay, how about fat or carbs? Can you talk about how those might impact your blood pressure?
Again, those don't immediately impact the blood pressure, but they contribute to a healthier body and weight loss. And so the blood pressure can come down that way. And they also keep the blood sugar stable, which can stabilize diabetes, which also impacts. It's all works together.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned earlier medications as well as an option for treatment. What typically does a person have to use or take to help with blood pressure?
You know, that would be up to your doctor and what else you have going on. Typically, if you only have high blood pressure and that's your presenting symptoms and you have nothing going on, we start with a diuretic or another hormonal-based medicine called an ACE inhibitor.
And you mentioned stroke earlier. Can you talk about what might happen if high blood pressure goes untreated?
Yeah, you can develop a brain injury. The arteries in your brain can rupture or clot, and you'll develop signs of a stroke where you could have facial drooping or weakness on one side of your body, often irreversible.
Are there other risk factors or health conditions that might develop because of high blood pressure?
Yeah, the high blood pressure over time puts pressure on all of your organs. So kidney failure can develop, stroke. Over time, it just can cause damage to all the organs. It can impact your vision.
So we mentioned diet, exercise, not smoking. Any other final tips before we take another commercial break when it comes to high blood pressure?
If you do get told you have high blood pressure, try not to take it personally and know that over time, the medicines are designed to keep you healthy over time. You know, we weren't built to live as long as we do, so sometimes we need a little help from medicines to stay feeling well.
That's great. Okay, thanks, Britt. Let's go ahead and pause here. We'll take another break, and when we come back, we'll talk about hypotension or low blood pressure. Stay with us. We'll be back after this.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
If you give or receive care, you already know that it can cause stress on caregiver and receiver alike. The good news is, if you have limited resources, help is available. The Montana Lifespan Respite Program may be able to help you pay for care while you take a break. Even better news is how easy it is to apply. You can get an application online or have one sent to you. We'll get back to you within 5 working days. Respite for caregivers. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. It's okay to get it.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
Welcome back. We're still talking with nurse practitioner Britt Ballinger this morning about blood pressure. Before the break, we focused on high blood pressure, but now we're going to switch gears and talk about low blood pressure. So thanks for staying with us, Britt.
You're welcome.
So low blood pressure sounds like it should be healthier than high blood pressure, but it can actually cause health risks as well. Is that right? Can you talk about some of those risks?
Most of the risks caused by low blood pressure are more acute. The ones caused by high blood pressure happen over time, but low blood pressure can typically cause people to feel over time more fatigued, but also dizzy, and they can actually pass out if their blood pressure gets too low.
Are those the main symptoms, or there are also other symptoms that might indicate somebody has low blood pressure?
Those are typically the symptoms we see is dizziness and passing out, or fatigue.
What can cause low blood pressure?
Dehydration is a big one. And a lot of times, especially here in cardiology, we see that the medication, sometimes we get people over medicated, and sometimes that's by design because they have other things going on. But medications, anemia, trauma, shock, lots of things can cause low blood pressure, but it's typically reversible.
So what is shock, and how is that related to low blood pressure?
Shock is when your tissues aren't getting enough blood flow. And if you have acutely low blood pressure from trauma, you can go into shock. And it's a sign of shock. Very low blood pressure is a sign of shock.
Is low blood pressure a condition like high blood pressure is, or you keep mentioning the word acute? How does low blood pressure actually work?
It can be a condition, but it typically is something that can be reversible, like bleeding or dehydration. Some people do have chronically low blood pressure and they deal with it fine. And those people will just need to drink a lot of fluids and kind of monitor themselves. There isn't much we can do about low blood pressure chronically.
So should someone seek medical attention for low blood pressure?
If you are not feeling well, definitely seek medical attention. But if it's always in the 90s systolically, and that's your normal, it's not anything to worry about over time.
How do you treat somebody who has a low blood pressure episode?
Again, we try to reverse whatever's causing that episode. If they're bleeding, we try to stop the bleeding and replace the blood. If they're dehydrated, we give them fluid. If they're over-medicated, we can back off on the medicines.
Can you talk about some of the medications that are sort of your usual suspects when it comes to low blood pressure? When should people be careful if they're prescribed certain things?
Yeah, unfortunately, all of the medicines that we use to treat high blood pressure cause low blood pressure because that's what they're supposed to do. So the beta blockers, the ACE inhibitors, the diuretics, those can all cause low blood pressure and sometimes it's a little bit of a balancing act. It's not a perfect science, and everybody doesn't get the same dose. So people don't have the same response to the same meds. So it just depends on what else you have going on. Typically, when we start a person on a therapy for high blood pressure, we'll see them frequently to make sure that they're tolerating it and their blood pressure isn't getting too low.
Okay. Sometimes when people stand up, they get dizzy or lightheaded. Is that caused by low blood pressure?
It can be. That's called orthostatic hypotension. And a lot of times when we treat people, we can cause that. And it's, again, sometimes we just have to deal with it. We just tell people to stand up slowly. But if that's happening to you frequently and you're not on treatment, you might want to check in with your doctor and see if there's something else going on, or at least drink more water.
So is that what's physically happening there? You're just dehydrated typically?
It can be, yes.
Okay. And what about after eating? I know that eating can lower your blood pressure. So what are some of the risk factors there, and what should people do if that's something that they're dealing with?
That's because a lot of the blood in your body is diverted to digesting your food. So that makes your peripheral, your overall blood pressure lower. So you're getting less blood flow to your brain, and that can make you feel dizzy. If that happens to you, it's just something you need to be aware of, and stand up slowly and try not to get in a situation where you're going to fall down. And also maintain adequate hydration.
If someone does faint, what should they do at that point?
In that case, it's probably time to seek medical attention.
And if they are injured, or I'm just wondering, as far as feeling dizzy, what is the safest way to get help?
If you're injured or if you pass out, just call 911. The safest way is to call 911.
Okay, so don't do anything yourself. And do people have low blood pressure? Are there driving risks they should be aware of?
If they're feeling dizzy or passing out, they definitely should not drive. Have someone else drive them. If they feel like they can make it to the emergency room or don't want to call 911, I would recommend calling 911, but at least do not drive a car.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably
putting everyone at risk besides yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're actually just about at time here this morning, Britt. Any closing thoughts on blood pressure management, high, low blood pressure, something that you'd like to reiterate for our viewers?
I would just defer to your doctor. Make sure you get it measured periodically. And if you have a reading that makes you nervous, but you feel okay, make an appointment with your doctor and bring your home monitor in with you so you can correlate it with the manual reading.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us this morning. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you'll come back again next week. Until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. We'll see you back here next week.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube icon. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.